I was going to do today, what I do want to kind of highlight is the size differences between different figures, particularly in the animated line. I'm going to concentrate on them for the moment because I think that's really important. Well, it's not really important, but that's what I really want to focus on. So let's pick some animated figures. Just a quick note before we start. It's February the 17th here in the UK. I'm doing this video at about 2:30, so there's every chance you'll be seeing this in about mid-March when I finally get around to loading it. So it's the middle of February in the UK. I don't know if you can see out my window. If you can't, it's actually snowing, which it has been doing on and off for the past 8 weeks. Okay, so they're not all quite in shot there, so if I can move this camera back a little bit. But here we have Grimlock, Blur, Atomic Lugnut, as they don't seem to stock the regular Lugnut in Toys R Us anymore. Blazing Lockdown, for the same reason, they don't seem to stock regular Lockdown anymore. And Swindle. So you've got 2 Autobots and 3 Decepticons. And the reason I picked these figures is because there are 2 Voyagers and 3 Deluxes. Blur, Lockdown and Swindle are the Deluxes. Lugnut and Voyager are the Voyagers. Okay, so what I really wanted to do was just sizes in robot mode and sizes in vehicle mode. So as soon as they're in vehicle mode, we'll start with vehicle mode. We take the 2 cars first off, a Decepticon, and in terms of size to each other, they're actually fairly decent. Obviously this one's more of a muscle car, this is more of a speedy, so you'd imagine this one to be a bit bigger. Length-wise, they're pretty similar. Kind of height-wise, they're pretty similar. Width-wise, they're pretty similar. So yeah, in vehicle mode, they're fairly in scale with one another, which is really good, which is what you want. Bring in Swindle, who's another car, and he's kind of an armoured Jeep kind of vehicle. And again, if we go to the top view, where am I? It's because I've got the camera angled. Where am I? Oh, I'm there, look. Again, decent size. Not bad at all. Height-wise, as you might expect, being a Jeep, Swindle is a little bit taller. If we just pan across, which is fine. And width-wise, they're all about equal. So let's bring in the dinosaur. Obviously, there's no real comparison here because dinosaurs aren't real anymore. They're not alive anymore. But height-wise, yeah, he's a good size for a Voyager. He dwarfs the Deluxes, which is what he should do. Being a Voyager, he should be bigger. So you can see he's a lot taller. There's a lot of bulk to him. He's probably even longer. Hang on a sec. He is. He's longer than Lockdown. If you don't include this saw weapon on Lockdown, he is actually longer than him, and he's longer than Swindle and Blur, which is what you want. So again, if we bring in Atomic Lugnut, now one of the reasons I picked Lugnut, I mean I held off from getting him for a while because I knew the problem he has with robot mode, which I'll get to shortly. But in vehicle mode, he's actually very, very nice. Yeah, he's a really nice size, really nice colour, especially the Atomic variant. I'm not sure of this kind of lime green, I don't know if you can see that, this kind of lime green Atomic colour on the front, but you know, the Decepticon logos on the wings, you know, and the Toxic Duke Nukem-esque logo on the back, and just the black and blue really kind of make this figure a lot more interesting than his previous release. And again, if we put him next to Swindle, because of course he's supposed to be some sort of atomic bomber, he's far longer than Swindle, which is what you want. He's also quite bulky, quite wide, he's wider than the other figures, even knocked down. So you can see that in vehicle mode they are actually pretty much in, well, not in scale obviously, because this guy would be Atomic Lockdown would be, Atomic Lugnut would be miles bigger than or any of these cars really. But obviously, in toy form, it's about as good as you're going to get it. What I'm going to do is concentrate on the robot modes, because that is where everything seems to suffer in the animated line. So just give me a second while I transform them, and we'll get into comparisons. Ta-da! Here we are. First of all, let's get the deluxes out of the way. Swindle. I would say he's probably... Well, hang on a second, let's bring in the Ultra Magnus bust. The Ultra Magnus bust at the top of the... let's call them the antenna here, is about 5 inches. The Swindle clocks in at probably just over 5 inches. Shit. Sorry, I've just broken a nameplate for my Ultra Magnus figure has just come off, which happens quite a lot. So yeah, so he's pretty stable actually. I mean, no way he's falling over. But he is a bit small, even for deluxe he's a bit small. And then that problem is compounded when you bring in Blur, who is also, oops, let me just sort his feet out so he can stand up straight, who is also a deluxe, but is a good 2 or 3 inches taller. Let me just see if we can knock up there. Hello! So yeah, the 2 deluxes there, they cost the same amount. I bought them for the same price from Toys R Us, and yet I've got what could also pass up as a Voyager size figure in Blur. And Swindle is, you know, proper deluxe size. Blur is kind of, well, a good 2 inches, possibly even 3 inches taller. So if we just take that into account, and then bring in Lockdown, who, if you've kind of been reading up about Transformers animated figures, you'll know that he is one of the biggest figures in the line, and he's actually even taller than Blur is, if you can see that. I mean, Blur's head is a good inch shorter than Lockdown's head, but even to the tips of Blur's shoulders there, he's still maybe a centimetre or 2 bigger than that. So for a deluxe, you've actually got a figure that dwarfs. Just put Blur to the back for a second. I'll just knock Lockdown here. And that is a ridiculous size discrepancy for 2 deluxe figures. That's 4 inches maybe? Nah, we'll say that's 3.5 inches difference between Swindle and Lockdown. Both deluxes, both the same amount of money. And he's massive. He's probably, I mean, I think Megatron and Ultra Magnus are bigger than him in their leader class forms. But apart from that, I think he's the biggest figure of the deluxe, and you know, it doesn't even fit in my camera. I can't even get them all in one shot without panning back. It's ridiculous, really. And that is made even worse by the fact that he's actually taller than Grimlock, who is a fucking Voyager. Look at that. That's another 2 inches there. That really is ridiculous.